Hey everybody, Claire here from the National Communication Museum. I am stoked to share this next interview with you. This is a chat that I had with the lovely Zoe Meagher, who's an experience developer. She worked with us at NCM and her job was all about working out how audiences would experience the stories within the museum. And if you've been inside, you know she did an incredible job. We talked about lots of different things, everything from the museum itself being like an object because the museum's housed inside an old working telephone exchange building. She talked about how you can do all of the work in the world, but the museum's never quite complete until visitors step inside. And she talked about some of her favourite things within the museum. I am stoked to be sharing it with you. We had the chat a little while ago, right before we opened in September, and I think I feel a little bit nervous in the beginning, but it turns out to be a really insightful chat, and I hope you enjoy.
So, hello, Zoe. Thank you for joining me for this little chat. I'm absolutely thrilled to be having a chat with you like this. You've got a gorgeous view behind you. Is that the foggy Melbourne weather behind you?
It absolutely is. Yes.
Yeah.
This morning I was inside a cloud.
Week. Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to have a bit of a chat with you about the amazing work that you've been doing for NCM, because we've got like a crazy, amazing team of creatives that we've collaborated with along the way, people that we're still working with now, people that we haven't worked with for a little while, but I'm just absolutely loving having chats with everybody. So I really appreciate you joining me. The first thing I really wanted to ask you, I guess, is like, so sort of your job title is, I guess, experience developer. That's sort of your job title. But I wanted to maybe just have a little bit of a chat with you about the kind of work that you do, what that actually means, maybe a bit about your sort of career background, perhaps.
Yeah, totally.
It sounds like a job interview. It's not.
No. Well, and it sounds like a made-up job title as well, experience developer. It's like, oh, I develop experiences. But basically, I work in narrative and interpretation for museums and museum exhibitions. So figuring out kind of what story an exhibition might want to be telling, and how best to communicate that story to visitors, and how to give visitors a meaningful experience through that exhibition. And then outside of that, I also make art projects with a focus on obsolescence and technology.
Wow. So kind of the perfect clash of things for NCM, the human experience, but with technology as well.
Absolutely. It was so relevant to my interests. I had actually visited the Communications Museum in its previous incarnation, just because I'm a huge nerd. And separate to that,
that seems to be a common thread throughout our team, I think.
Absolute geekery, yes, common amongst everyone, which was, it was such a beautiful team to be part of. It was really joyful. And I had worked with some of the NCM team previously on other exhibition projects, and I think they knew what a massive nerd I was and how excited I would be to kind of dive into the collection and all of this really fascinating technology, and Absolutely. How excited I would be to be involved in finding new ways to tell some of those stories.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that, sort of how you connected with NCM in the beginning, because I know obviously you come from the museum world. A lot of the team here have got some really long and incredible careers in the museum world. Is that how you connected? Like, can you tell us a little bit about how you maybe first connected with NCM and came on board with the project?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So I connected with NCM because I had worked with some of the NCM team previously. We knew each other, we knew each other's kind of styles of work and what we could do, and they were looking for someone to come on board and help with developing some of the early creative concept and early ideas around what visitors might do at the NCM and what kinds of stories might be kind of extracted from this incredible collection, and what kinds of devices we might use, not in terms of technological devices, but more in terms of, are we using text? Are we using writing? Are we using screens? Are we using audio? How are we connecting the stories and the experience that people are having to the building that this museum is going to be in. So I was so thrilled that the team thought of me and invited me to come and play around with all of this really, really cool technology.
It's interesting that, you know, if you're using a screen to tell a story or you're using a phone to tell a story, but we're using these pieces of technology to tell the story about those pieces of technology. It
gets
funny
super meta.
Yeah, really meta. That must have been a lot of fun. Like, can you tell us maybe like what kind of work you specifically, or what kind of that experience, or maybe your approach maybe with NCM? Like, how did you even kind of go about that? Like, when it came to the work that you were doing with NCM, what did you kind of decide then when you went into it? Did you make that sort of decision around how you were going to tell that story? Maybe tell us a little bit about that and the work you've done for NCM.
Yeah, it was a process. I mean, a lot of it was happening during lockdowns, but we were lucky enough to kind of get together in person a few times. And at that point, obviously, the NCM had already established this incredible collection of objects. So that was kind of there as one of the starting points. And a lot of these objects were very everyday objects, I would say. A lot of them very not everyday and quite extraordinary, but a lot of them also things that people might take for granted. So just kind of, you know, telephone booths and handsets and kind of little pieces of obsolete technology that people might otherwise have discarded.
I've prepared earlier.
All of these spectacular items.
Yeah.
The elf phone is absolutely
the
favorite.
Elf phone, yeah, our little mate.
Yeah, so there were all of these amazing things. And then I guess the NCM also at that point had its site, the building, the exchange building, which of course is a telephone exchange building. So there were sort of these two starting points, which provided a really exciting spark and something to kind of bounce off of. And I think something that both a lot of the collection items and the building had in common were this idea that they were quite extraordinary things when you kind of looked closely at them, but in a way they were hidden in plain sight. So the exchange building, you know, it doesn't look like a lot from the outside, a pretty, you know, standard looking brick building, but houses all of this, these incredible goings on across multiple levels. And in a way, it meant that the museum experience, the exhibitions were going to be taking place inside a kind of collection object, this piece of extraordinary communications technology. So these were sort of, you know, they were really rich, offering this rich material to begin with. So the questions kind of became, well, how can we create an experience for people that really reflects that story and that feeling of revealing something magical or something extraordinary that is right there, but perhaps not usually noticed by people. So we kind of... Oh, sorry, Claire, go on. No.
I think that's a really common thread that I'm finding with NCM. You know, I haven't been here too long. I've come on board a little bit later as a marketing person. You know, you don't really need to promote something that in the very beginning stages. So I've had the really amazing experience of coming into something when a lot of that work's already been done. And the thing that I'm loving about NCM so much is the fact that it is about that everyday thing that we use all the time. We all interact with technology, phones, we have memories connected to these things, and something that feels like it's not maybe the most interesting thing or the most special thing. Actually, when you break it open, it is incredible. The stories that come out of it it's just so fascinating and really kind of at the core of who we are as humans.
Yes,
you know,
spot on.
needing to connect.
Yeah. That's so spot on. I think, you know, there's a real intimacy to a lot of these objects, where they're really deeply integrated into our lives, and they reflect a lot about us as people. The users who have interacted with these objects have left their fingerprints all over them. And even in the building itself, when we were first coming into the building and lucky enough to kind of have a look around and explore it, you could see the traces that all of the people who had worked in this building over time had left, as this kind of big working object. So yeah, it even though it's a technology collection and their technology stories, it's all really, really human as well.
Absolutely. It's a funny thing when you get a new phone, and when you first get it, it's this pristine thing, but then cut to 6 months, a year's time, and the thing, it's not something that just lays discarded. It's not an item you use. You interact with it. It becomes a different thing, right? You personalize it. You put your bank cards in it. You put your your public transport. It becomes this thing, cracks and scratches, and that's sort of where the interesting stuff lies, right?
Absolutely, and it fills up with all of your information, whether you like it or not. And but then when you go back and revisit these objects, certainly when I go back and look at old mobile phones from my own life or older computers that I've used in the past, they're technologically obsolete, but they still feel relevant and they hold a lot of stories. They're still full of things, both literally and conceptually. And I think that's certainly the case for so much of the NCM collection. And I think that's really one of the powerful things about it, is that they are, very relatable objects. They're very human objects, and they hold a lot of stories and a lot of meaning, and I think they'll spark a lot of memories for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the fact that NCM inspires us. There's lots about NCM that inspires us both, I think, by the sounds of things. But is there a particular sort of thing or experience, or is there something about NCM that inspires you the most?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really inspires me about it is the potential for sparking memory and for encouraging dialogue. I think dialogue between visitors, that's something that I think we were really hoping to create an environment for in those early kind of stages of thinking about what this place could be, and what it could be like to come and visit. I think we did hope that it could be a place where people come and enter into dialogue, not only with each other, with other people, but into dialogue with these objects and with the memories and stories that they hold as well.
Absolutely.
We talked a lot about magic realism as a genre, and the idea that maybe this building, this kind of working building, this phone exchange, we could imagine it as a place that was so rich with communication technology and so full of connections that, the barriers of time and space had broken down. And so all of these objects from all these different times and places could sit here together, but also all of these stories could kind of encounter each other and sit together, and that dialogue could occur not just across space, but across time as well. So I think that's really exciting, the potential there. And I'm really excited to see how visitors come into the museum and make it their own, and how the community makes it their own.
Because it is going to be quite a choose your own adventure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. We wanted it to be quite, to have almost a feeling of, I guess, a bit of a network or a constellation where people can kind of choose their own pathway and make their own connections between stories, because there are so many, unexpected links between a lot of these things and a lot of these stories, and links that you can make that might not be obvious or that people might not have thought of before. I think that's really exciting. And to facilitate that, we wanted the building to kind of be this almost like an entity that is welcoming you in, and the voice of the museum is in a way the voice of this building, kind of facilitating connection and encouraging you to explore. So
And it
I
almost
hope that
places
comes
the
across.
visitor. Absolutely. And you speak about it so beautifully.
That's very
And I
kind.
and I wonder, it almost then makes me think about the visitor within that, because some of those links might not be obvious to one person, but might be obvious to another. So it's like, depending on that person's experience with that technology, or depending on where they're from or what their age is, those links, people might make different links. So every person is going to be having a very different experience in the building, depending on their own experience throughout life. It's really quite beautiful, because there's the network, but then there's also the person within that network too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really fun and really
Yeah.
exciting. When you're making an exhibition or a museum, I think there can be a lot of temptation to try and control the story completely and control the experience that people are going to have. But really, I think it's a lot more fun to kind of put conditions in place like that can facilitate someone creating their own experience, and being comfortable with leaving negative space in an exhibition so that the visitors can bring their own experiences and their own memories, and, like you say, make their own connections, that even the people making the exhibition or putting together the museum wouldn't have been able to think of.
Yeah, how beautiful. So you can get it to a certain point, but really once the museum is open, that's when its true purpose will be reached.
Yeah,
It's not
yes.
quite complete until the people are within it, the
Yes.
visitors. That's really exciting. So what do you think or hope that the impact of NCM will be on the community?
I think something that I would hope people get out of the NCM is feeling encouraged to maybe take a second look or a closer look at some of the technology and the objects that are really ubiquitous in our lives. Like, they're always there. We use them every day. We might not use them every day, but they facilitate things that we do every day, and realize how extraordinary it is that we're able to communicate in the ways that we do today, and in the past as well. I think I would hope that people come away from the museum and see things around them in their everyday lives as a little bit more magical, or a little bit more special, or a little bit more extraordinary than we might normally um, expect them to be, or how we might normally see them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think most people, I don't think I'm alone in this. I hope I'm not alone in this, but I think, the pandemic, we're in 2024 now, so it's a little while ago now. But I mean, the museum, you first came on board in 2020. And I think that was definitely something that people, like, we couldn't connect with each other in the way that we used to. Even the fact that you and I are talking on video call right now, I think that those are things that we maybe take less for granted. Do you think we took it less for granted than perhaps we did before the pandemic? Is that really valuing our ability to connect with one another, and how important that actually is?
Yeah, I think that time really threw the importance of access to communication technology into the foreground. And certainly at that time, I remember feeling really, really relieved and appreciative that we could still talk to each other using things like video chat, and just how lucky it was that we happened to have the technology and the infrastructure at that particular time for us to be able to do that. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's
but
really
it
true.
is,
Imagine if it had happened at a different time.
yeah, what would we have done? I mean,
Yeah,
I know people would have figured out something different.
yeah,
Um, but yes, and I think, all of these technological stories are so deeply integrated into the time and place that they come from. I'm sure in the future it'll be impossible to kind of extricate the story of Zoom
Yeah.
and the story of video calls from what was happening at that particular time and in various places.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it is, but now obviously video calls are so like they feel so everyday. I can
Absolutely. They really do.
remember being a kid and going to an exhibition about future technology, and they had a prototype video phone that people could use, and I could call my nan who was in the next room and I could see her on the screen, and that was so extraordinary at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now we do this all the time. Like we're doing it right now. I do it every single day. And I think it does become maybe easy to forget how special and how incredible that is.
Yeah, I remember I had a similar experience. Moments where I go, wow, that's really incredible. But I remember being a child watching Back to the Future, and there was a scene where he's on a video call talking to Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I remember being a kid and thinking, oh my God, imagine if we get to do that in the future. And here we are.
I'm still waiting for the double tie look to come into fashion. Then we'll know we're truly in the future.
Let's bring it. Let's bring it forward.
The future is now. Let's do it.
Take some scissors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've covered heaps of different sort of reasons about what makes NCM special, but is there a number one thing? If you had, one post-it note to hand to somebody to say this is what makes NCM special, what do you think that would be for you?
I think I would use really, really tiny writing to write on a post-it note. I think what makes NCM really special is look, it's a cliched answer, but the people, because without the people who have had the experiences that they've had, who have had the working lives that they've had, that collection would never have been put together. So the excitement and the knowledge that the people had to put the collection together in the first place, building it up over previous decades, keeping those stories kind of safe, being generous with their knowledge, and now people working on creating this new iteration of the museum and bringing these stories to life for a new generation of people and helping people connect to those stories and those objects in new ways. I think that's really incredibly special, and it's that very unique mix that I think is going to make the NCM really exciting.
Here's hoping. No, I agree. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Zoe, for joining me. I really appreciate you having this chat with me. It's been really fun.
Oh, pleasure, Claire. Thanks for inviting me. I love talking about this stuff.